This video will make the statement that all tournaments is not real martial arts. You know, this video is like in a response to somebody sent me a very long message. I didn't read through the entire message because I could see where it's heading. You know, he's pretty much trying to defend his idea on why tournaments are good. And to me, there's no need to defend. I'm not the type of person that likes to argue with anybody. You know, everybody sees their own truth. It's like when you know something, there's no argument. It's just something you know. Like I know what I did yesterday. I mean, there's absolutely no argument about it. I know what I did. You know, I don't need to prove that to anybody. It's just something that I know. You know, things that I've experienced in life, I know. I learn from my experiences in life. I learn from my mistakes in life. So I know, you know, certain things that I should do, certain things that I shouldn't do. Like something, for example, for me, I know that drinking alcohol is not good for me. It's not something that I want to be a part of my lifestyle. Now, there could be millions of people out there that could argue why alcohol is good for you, but that's not my truth. Same thing with like smoking weed, taking steroids or whatever. I have my own way, and I don't want to argue with other people to change their ways. I'm not here to change people. I'm just here to share my experiences in life. You know, but as far as tournaments are concerned, I'm just gonna give, you know, the way that I see it. According to me, all tournaments are not real martial arts. Anybody that decides to enter into a tournament, he ends up deviating from the way of the true martial arts. And yes, there may be a lot of people out there that are offended, but this video is not intended to offend. This video is more about learning to properly label what we do. Just because I say, hey, you know, he's not practicing the real martial arts, does not necessarily meant to be disrespectful. It's just meant to be like, hey, you know, you're not practicing what you think you're practicing. You're practicing something else. You should just label it something else. I'm just more about properly labeling what we actually practice. You know, so it's like somebody's playing basketball, or somebody's playing football, and he says, hey, you know, I'm playing basketball. I'm just saying, no, you're not playing basketball. You're playing football. You know, like, basketball is not what you're doing. And that's essentially all I'm doing, is just saying, you know what, the people out there who are claiming that they practice the martial arts, you're not really practicing martial arts. You're practicing something else. You know, and it's not necessarily that basketball is better than football or soccer or whatever. It's just they're all different sports. Some people like one sport over another. So basically, real martial arts to me is a combination of physical fitness development, combative development, and meditation. And hence, martial arts It's not martial sports. It's not combat sports. You gotta know the difference between sport and art. Okay, you have to decide. You have to know those are two different things. Those are like almost opposite. Sport and art are like almost opposite. So you cannot say that sport is art, and you cannot say that art is sport. Once you have that full understanding, if you truly study what art really is, then you will know that what I'm saying is true. Like, any tournament is not martial arts. It cannot be. Because the fact of it being a tournament already makes it not art. Because you're putting people up towards judgment. And you're creating, a tournament is a game. Okay, all tournaments are games. And martial arts is not a game, it's an art. Okay, so that has to be fully understood. All games is not art. So every single thing that you find in the Olympic Games is not art. You know, all the sports that we know of is not art. Sport and games are designed for competition. It's revolved around winning and losing. Art is creative self-expression. There's no such thing as winning and losing. There's just creatively expressing yourself, honestly. Okay, so right now I'm outside and the birds are chirping. Some of them might be singing. That's like their art. They're just being naturally creative. It's not a competition. Oh, you know, which bird chirps the best, which bird chirps, you know, is the best singer. No, they're just being natural. And that's what art is. Art is like a painter, a dancer that just dances, a painter that just paints. Art is like a musician, a person that just plays music. Art is like, you know, it's like a rapper, a singer that sings, a rapper that raps. Now they could try to make singing a competition, and that's what they do with American Idol. They could try to make rapping a competition by, you know, doing the battle rapping, but that's when they're deviating from the art. That's when they're trying to turn an art into a sport. So when we see like gymnasts in the Olympic Games, they have turned an art into a sport. Now everything's up to criticism, and everything is about like what the judges want, because in order to win, you need to impress the judges. So if you're concerned about impressing the judges, if you're concerned about impressing the audience, then you're deviating from the art. You're going from an art into more of a sport, into a competition. Artists are not about pleasing judges. They're not about pleasing other people. They're just about expressing themselves from within honestly, and that's so rare. So that's why I always say that it's rare to meet a real martial artist, because artists are not competitors. They are not people that are trying to win, or that are trying to win or lose. They're just being honest with their creativities. So, especially in America, mostly everybody are competitors. Mostly everybody are not martial artists, but they are sport fighters. in one way, shape, or form. So you're either a Taekwondo fighter, or you're a Muay Thai fighter, or you're a boxer, or you're a kickboxer, or you're an MMA fighter, a cage fighter, or you're a judo fighter. Like, anytime you are engaging into winning or losing, you are deviating from the art. Like, the difference between an artist and a fighter is more like somebody who's playing a game for competition. He wants to win, doesn't want to lose. Artist is somebody who's just a creator. Okay, so like an artist is more like a producer of a movie. He wants to create a movie to have other people enjoy the experience. That's not winning and losing, that's just him being creative. Artist is like an author who wants to write a book and share his ideas with the world. That has nothing to do about winning or losing. Okay? So, a fighter is like, it's not too different from, you know, playing basketball, you want to win. Playing football, you want to win. Playing tennis, you want to win. Like, everybody knows, the West knows a lot about competition. It's always about winning or losing. They want to turn everything into a competition. So they want to take whatever art they could find and turn it into a competition. And I know all about competition because the West is all about competition. I grew up surrounded by competition. And I played basketball for many years, and that sport is all about competition. And when I went into the martial arts, that's when I felt at home, I felt at ease. Because out of everything in this world that is so competitive, I was able to find something where I could just get away from all that and just be on my own, not worrying about anybody around me. And that was the beauty of art. That's when I found out about the beauty of art. And then there was no turning back. Because you live in a world filled with competition. It's like you need this space where you want to get away from all that. And art is my way to get away from all of that. And that's why I love the martial arts. And that's why I know the difference between martial arts and martial sport or combat sport. I know the difference, but other people don't know because they never experienced art before. I've experienced it. This is me. This is what I do. This is my bread and butter. I love art. You know, so for example, the person who is talking about combat sport, Taekwondo, sport fighting, how much he likes it, he's in this sport mentality. I'm in an art mentality. So he's trying to bring the sport to me through writing, almost like a competing way, saying, hey, you know, let's argue to see which one is better. And that's not what I'm about. Because no matter if we're competing physically or we're competing verbally, it's still a competition. I'm not about competition. I'm just about being honest. So you could be honest, I could be honest, and then that's that. You know what I'm saying? Like, as an artist, I don't care what other people think about me and what I do. It's just, this is what I do. And other people will try to compare me to other people. Well, is Freddie better than this person, or is that person better than Freddie? It's just like they're making those comparisons, but that has nothing to do with me. So I don't care. I'm just being honest. So it's like you could have a rapper who's just really good at rapping. It's his art. And then you have other people that will compare that rapper to other rappers and be like, well, I like this person better than that person. Well, other people can judge the artist. The artist can't stop other people from judging. But the artist himself will not become a part of that. He's just going to be pure to his art. It's not about being better than anybody. Even though the public tries to turn it into that, it's not about that. So when people say, oh, you know, is Jackie Chan better than Jet Li? Is Jet Li better than Bruce Lee? Who do you think will win in a real fight? It's just, art is not about that. You got real martial artists like a Bruce Lee, a Jet Li, you know, of Jean-Claude Van Damme. Okay, you got those three artists. It has nothing to do with who is better than who. It's just about them being naturally who they are. And there might be millions of people that don't like a certain artist, but he's not there for people to like him or dislike him. He's just there just to be himself, to be honest to his art. And that's what makes a true artist. So when I say a true martial artist, I'm saying somebody who's just honest about himself. And most people are not honest about themselves. They're trying to impress other people. They're trying to prove themselves to other people. And then when you try to prove yourself to other people, when you're trying to impress other people, when you're trying to win, then you are deviating from the path of an artist. You are becoming a competitor. A competitor and an artist are completely opposite. An artist is true to himself. He does not care about what anybody thinks around him. He's just true to himself. A competitor is somebody who is trying to impress the people around him, to impress the judges, to impress the audience. He's trying to gain public recognition. He's trying to win. That is completely opposite. A competitor is focused on the outside, so that's more extroverted. An artist is focused on the inside. That's more introverted. They are completely opposite. So the people who are competitors should not be calling themselves artists. And the people that are artists should not be calling themselves competitors. These things need to be properly labeled. So pretty much almost everything out there that's being practiced and being promoted is not art, is not martial arts. It has become a sport revolved around competition. These people are training to become successful in games, winning games, opposed to developing themselves as artists or towards street survival. See, when you train for street survival, You will utilize your creativity upon what you think may happen and how you could train to prepare for that exigent circumstance, for that very dangerous encounter. That's utilizing a lot of creativity. But within the context of sport, there's no room for creativity. The sport has set the standard, has set the rules, has set the regulations of what you can and cannot do. And you're bound by those regulations. There's no room for creativity. So when you are becoming a basketball player, there's no room for creativity. You cannot dribble however you want to dribble. You cannot just do whatever the hell you want to do on the basketball court. You're governed by the rules of that game. Same thing with combat sport. You can't just go into a boxing ring in professional boxing and then all of a sudden start kicking, like you're like kicking and doing jump kicks and wrestling and whatever, bringing knives and sticks into the ring. No, you're governed by the regulations of that sport. There's no room for creativities. These sports have been created for hundreds of years, even thousands of years. Those regulations are set in stone. There's no room for creativity as a participant. You have to just play that game according to those rules. But when you're training for survival, there's no limitations to the creativities of which you could imagine could happen on the streets and how you could prepare to encounter that situation. You can envision somebody's trying to run you over with this car. You can envision somebody, you're at the train station sitting down and then 3 people attack you at the same time. You can envision a man with a gun, a man with a knife, both trying to come get you. You can envision you standing in the bank waiting to be the next in line, and then all of a sudden the whole bank is getting robbed. Sometimes you don't even create your own scenarios, but you read things in the newspapers of things that actually happen, and then you envision yourself in that situation. Like a woman who ended up getting followed by a man and then she gets raped in the alley. You envision things that can happen out there in the real world, and then you prepare against that. That's utilizing a lot of creativity towards your development as a martial artist. You're using your imagination and you're creating scenarios, and then you are training off of those creations. This is completely different than combat sport. This is survival. It's not about weight classes. It's not about regulations. It's just about survival. It's not about gender discrimination. I mean, there will be men that will attack women out there in the streets, and women will need to train to learn how to survive that. You know, there might be a situation where you think of where you're a victim of police brutality, and then you gotta figure out how to handle that situation. Or, you know, you get pulled over by the police, and then the police officer pulls out a gun and starts pointing it at you. Then what do? You gotta come up with the solution to these situations. You witness a woman getting raped. What do? You witness a woman getting robbed. What do? You witness somebody vandalizing your vehicle, what do you do? Or you're driving your car and then there's road rage. Somebody cuts you off. Somebody staring you down. Or there's groups of teenagers disrespecting you verbally. How do you handle that? There's people being racist towards you, calling you names. What do you say? What do you do? I mean, these are all things that a martial artist would train and then utilize his creativities of how to handle each and every situation. And the scenarios are boundless. It's endless. It's not revolved around rules and regulations of this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. I mean, you make the rules for yourself. Now, when I say that tournaments are not real martial arts, all tournaments are not real martial arts, I am not saying that martial artists do not spar. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying spar as much as you want, spar as much as you can, but you make your own rules. If there even will be any rules, you make your own rules for you. You don't let anybody else make those rules for you. So when I practice martial arts, I can spar against anybody. I can spar with boxers, wrestlers, taekwondo fighters, judo people, regular people, women, children, old people, young people, middle-aged people, disabled people. I could spar with whoever I want. And then I make my own rules. And they make their own rules. Like if I want to spar with someone that practices taekwondo, I don't join his tournaments. No, it's just man versus man. We decide how we want to engage in this sparring experience. And the sparring experience is not about winning or losing. It's about learning. It's about analyzing. It's about discovering. It's about experimentation. The approach that I go in the sparring is the same approach that a scientist would do. He would conduct experiments. He would come up with a hypothesis and he would conduct an experiment to see if he could prove this hypothesis to be true. Or, he's experimenting. And that's the approach that I go through in sparring. I might set it up, okay, I have 2 students, give each of my students a knife, and then see how I handle that situation. These are experiments. It's not about winning or losing. It's more about proving to myself what will work or will not work for me in a certain situation. And that's very important towards a martial artist's growth, is hands-on sparring, but not in a competitive context. A scientist is not a competitor. He's somebody who's intelligent, who uses his mind to try to analyze certain things to discover truth. And that's what martial artists do when it comes to sparring. They use intelligence to approach the combative situation, to discover for themselves what will be effective in a certain situation for them. And that's the difference. Fighters are people who just join whatever competition, and then they're bound by the rules of that game, and then they engage in combat based upon those rules to win or lose. That's different. And I keep talking about Bruce Lee because he's one of the very few famous martial artists out there to ever live. You know, it's very rare to meet a real martial artist, but it's even more rare to even find a famous martial artist. But Bruce Lee was one of the few. But notice Bruce Lee, what did he do? He made movies. And when you make a movie, you could be creative. And he was a true artist with his creativity. He even produced the movie. He would help write the movies. He came up with his own TV show that ended up being starring David Carradine. He produced The Way of the Dragon. He started bringing in his friends to make movies with them. He was creating every fight scene. He was creating philosophical discussions that he could put into his movies. He was a big creator. He created his way of Jeet Kune Do. He wasn't bound by other people's ways. He was a creator. He went to the tournaments not to compete, but to demonstrate his abilities without competing. He used the tournament as a way, he went to the tournaments as a way to market and promote himself without competing in the tournament. He did the famous 1-inch punch to demonstrate. He did the 2-finger push-up to demonstrate. He didn't have to fight anybody in a tournament. He chose not to. Because he knows that anytime a martial artist agrees to engage in some sort of tournament, he's already putting himself at a huge handicap. Because he's engaging within a sport revolved around regulations when his specialty is being unregulated. And when your specialty is being unregulated and you force yourself upon competing in a game that's revolved around regulations, you're bound to fail. There's no way that you'll succeed, because that is not what you're meant to do. It's like locking a bird in a cage. He's just gonna die. He's not meant to be locked in a cage. He's meant to be free. So a martial artist is meant to be free. He's not meant to be regulated by rules of what he can and can't do. You can't tell a martial artist, oh, you know, you can't bite. You can't eye gouge. You can't kick him in the groin area. You can't scream at him. You can't, you know, hit him in the back of the head. Can't stop him when he's on the ground. You can't put all these regulations on a martial artist. Just like you cannot put a regulation on a person on the streets who's in a life-threatening situation. He's about to get killed and slaughtered. You can't put a regulation on what he can do to survive that situation. You know, so Bruce Lee proved to the entire world that, hey, this is somebody who has become a legend. This is somebody who has become one of the most famous martial artists to ever live. And he never had to compete. in any tournaments to prove himself. He never had to put anybody in the hospital to prove himself. He never even had to knock somebody out. All he had to do was just express himself honestly as an artist, having fun, making films. You know, just watching somebody punching and kicking as fast as he could. He doesn't even have to try to hit he doesn't even have to hit anybody. You could just see the power and the speed, and then you know what he's capable of. Just like somebody who's displaying a firearm, you know this is a dangerous person. You don't need him to see him actually kill somebody. When you see Usain Bolt running as fast as he could, you know that he's fast. You know he's fast. Martial artist, if he's a great martial artist, you'll know it. You can see it. He doesn't have to prove himself. He's just being honest. When you see a lion, you know it's a lion. You know it's not a zebra. You know it's not a squirrel. You see a lion, you know it's a lion. So when you see a real martial artist, he doesn't have to prove anything. Just being himself is already enough proof.